Like to have you join us here on Global Morning, first day of the week. Yes, it's not a weekday, but it marks the beginning of another week. We're grateful for life, which in itself is the best gift we all can boast of. It's been very interesting week, one that came with some drama, but interestingly also historical, especially given that is this past week we had the international, the May Day, Workers' Day, as we call it, which in itself has shot up some talking points, not just in this country, but across the world as it stands right now. Of course, those are some of the issues we'll also be looking at on the program this morning. Let's just say it's global television, and as always, we're pleased to know that you're joining us. I'm Uyi Mofwebe, and for the first time, I'm co-anchoring with a colleague I so much adore, Mukhtar Kasim, together with whom we will be spending the next 1.5 hours with you here. Mukhtar, it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
I think it's a greater pleasure for me to be alongside the amazing Mr. Uyi. And yes. I'm blushing like I'm seeing a starstruck fan seeing a superstar, basically. So it's a great one to be.
Issues around insecurity. Kwara is quite and fast becoming some sort of hotspot right now. Almost every other week we hear some very depressing news from Kwara State. And Mukhtar, when you look at it before now, you will hear such news from places like Northwest, places like, maybe a bit of North Central, and then of course Northeast, which for over 15 years has been the hotspots of insecurity. Of course, there is always some very sad news about insecurity from across the country. If you go to the South, for example, kidnapping at the point had even become business.
Yes.
At the point we saw people, for instance, in my home state of Edo, protesting to the state government to say, look, you've got to do more work. You've got to ensure that we put all of this kidnapping behind us. At the point, people could not even go to their farms, especially in Edo Central, part of Edo North, and things like that. It just shows to you that we're not in a good place as a country.
Most definitely.
However, when you now start hearing such news spreading to places like Kwara, which before now had been quite peaceful, places like Ekiti State in the north, in the southwest, you are wondering what exactly is it that we're dealing with?
Honestly, it's a very worrisome situation, and you mentioned Kwara. It's in the north, but it's like a gateway to the southern part of Nigeria. And we've seen insurgency spreading across the north, and it's getting to Kwara. That means if it's not nipped in the bud, it spreads across to the south, and we see a different dimension of insecurity from the one you've mentioned that is typical of the southern Nigeria. So it's a very worrisome trend, and of course we've seen a bit of gains here and there in all of those states, Kwara, Niger, and North Central. But it's still a very worrisome situation, and the security forces, they've been doing their best, but of course they can up their game to see that it doesn't spread, because we're already dealing with so much. We can't afford to have it worse off than it is currently.
I see at this point, Mukhtar, it's also very important we highlight how that rhetorics by politicians and political leaders across board are very crucial. Not too long ago, just a couple of weeks back, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, was on record saying that insecurity usually around the electionary period increases. Therefore, we can rest assured after elections, this will abate. That raised very grave concerns on the part of citizens, asking, are we saying that we have to normalize, experiencing an increase, or if you like, a rise in insecurity around the electionary period, especially now that we are inching closer to 2027? Because if that is the case, it's almost like the government saying, look, we're helpless about this. You all will have to deal with this until such a time when we are done with election. And this is even more important, given that the person who made this statement is the number 3 citizen in the country. So when a man of such stature speaks, it's only natural that citizens will take it as though the government has spoken, and that's disturbing.
No, it's really disturbing, and a generality of Nigerians, including myself, was not happy with that statement because it seems like you are saying the priority for you right now
is the election,
not people's security. Because government, the essence why government exists, we all know, is security and welfareism. So if you cannot guarantee the people's security at this very pertinent time, you're telling them to wait till after elections. So the people now, for me, it should be an indicator of getting their priorities right.
Right.
You are going to have to get people in office, people who prioritize your security at all times, not people who tell you that elections are the reasons why we have a high tendency. Of course, like we said, they've been doing quite a bit in their own regard.
Right.
But you cannot say you're prioritizing security to a later date. It's something that people's lives have been lost. People have been affected. It's affected our economy and all of that. So it should be your number one utmost priority as a government, and it should be something you tackle head on at this very moment, not having excuses or moving to a later date. So that statement for me was not really in order, and I hope they do better.
Right, we do hope that we do better as a government and, of course, as a nation. Right. We're going to take a quick break now, but just to also let you know that in the course of our conversation today, we'll be looking at regional development. Of course, these are more like the pieces in the puzzle for national development. What exactly are the regional development commissions, or the ones we call the development commissions, doing regarding national development? What are their mandates, and how are they collectively and individually driving those mandates towards the ultimate goal of moving Nigeria from where it is today Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debates, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m., Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
At Witchtech Cables, we don't just make cables, we deliver excellence. Our products are built with advanced technology, trusted for their unmatched quality and durability. With a wide range of cables, swift delivery, and continuous innovation, we stay ahead of the market demand. We are proudly Nigerian, fully indigenous, yet world-class. Backed by a professional team, strong technical support, and a deep commitment to customer satisfaction, Witchtech Cables is more than a brand, it's a promise. Witchtech Cables, quality cables better than the best.
A new Imo is on the rise. In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodinma's leadership has left the pages of manifestos to become real actions and achievements. Transformations that piece by piece feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace to thrive, and in Imo, we are not leaving it to chance. From land to sky to river deep, guardians are always watching, protecting dreams and opportunities. If you go to the quiet shore of Orashi Power, you will see the awakening of a hydropower roaring to electrify and energize a blossoming economy. The change is visible. The heartland of the East is under construction as new roads are threading together once forgotten places. Industry is humming again and communities are alive. At the center of it all, a digital revolution is rising. A new ministry with a new mission. Not just cables and codes, but capacity. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build a digital future. And as Orashi Power goes up, so does Imo, lifting with it the hopes of a hard-working people. A new Imo is on the rise.
Making the rounds on our national dailies. And of course, we have a number of dailies for review here. We've got the Weekend Trust newspaper, we've got the This Day newspaper, The Nation's, Vanguard, The Punch, and much more newspapers that we're going to be reviewing for you. And we begin with the Weekend Trust newspaper. That's the first paper for review, and it has quite a number of stories and picture stories here. The first story here on the Weekend Trust newspaper says APC consensus in crisis, and of course it has a picture story that depicts the APC and the consensus, and we have another picture of people carrying ballots. That is the first story we have on the Weekend Trust newspaper for review. And above the picture story, you would see dining tables, and this is talking about the food, the expensive nature of food, and this story is on page 28 of the Weekend Trust newspaper. And the last story here on the Weekend Trust says why Almajiri persists, and this is talking about the plight of the beggars on the streets. This story you find on page 10 of the Weekend Trust newspaper. That's the OE.
All right. It's interesting. You know that part that talks about essentials, how that economic hardship is pushing off some very vital, if you like, items off the table of households. It's interesting. I mean, I've been here long enough to know that there was a time when we were told young children must have an egg at least every day. But I'm not so sure the reality of today would allow many parents do that. Not because they love their children less these days, but simply because they have so many things now struggling, or if you like, screaming for the limited amount of money that they have in their hands. I remember very clearly in 2023, just after President Bola Tinubu had announced the removal of fuel subsidy, we spoke with one of Nigeria's most respected economists here on Global Morning, Dr. Paul Alaje, and he said, look, if you were earning 500,000, he was trying to break it down for the everyday citizen to understand. If you were earning 500,000 prior to the suspension of fuel subsidy payments, you are now effectively earning 150,000 naira.
So the what's it called? Inflation has eroded.
Right, more than two-thirds of your earnings.
In a country where minimum wage is actually 70,000.
Exactly, and then we say let's find consolation in the fact that there are governors who have now upped their game, who are paying higher. For example, we understand Imo State is doing 104,000.
Yes.
While we can confidently say that is really, really commendable, but the question is, how is the market responding? Because once the market hears that the government, or the state government in this case, has increased or reviewed your pay upwards, it responds to it. That's how it works. And that's why maybe late American rapper B.I.G. will say more money, more problem.
Exactly.
But we must find a way to tackle these challenges, quite frankly.
Most definitely.
All right, let's take a look at our very next paper for you, and that happens to be the Sunday Punch newspaper this morning. Top right of it, we have a picture of Peter Obi and, of course, Rabiu Kwankwaso, two gentlemen who are now being speculated to be moving from the ADC to the NDC. They're moving from one party that ends with a C to another one that ends with a C. And we see how there appears to be some handshake now between the support base of Peter Obi and the Kwankwasia movement, which is very, very strong, as we know, at least in Kano State. But let's see how this all pans out, because again, it highlights something around the opposition in Nigeria. It says 2027, Obi Kwankwaso defection plan threatens coalition consensus. Why is that the case? Is it because we're hearing that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is once again throwing his hat in the ring. People say he's a serial ticket collector. He wants to collect this ticket again. So Peter Obi and Kwankwaso have seen that coming. So they want to find some sort of political shelter before the race come.
Most definitely. He said this might be his last chance because of age and other
So he's not leaving anything to chance.
He's not going to leave anything to chance.
Right.
Of course, the coalition had, before now, I know they agreed to pick one person, but then with this, who's the person that's going to emerge? There's so many options, and it's going to give them a lot of headaches. So of course, you have to start making backup plans in case this one doesn't work. So I think this is the backup for Peter Obi and Kwankwaso movement. But then, what does that really do for Nigeria's opposition? That's the question I ask myself. Because if you want to defeat the incumbent, you have got to have a united opposition. And
that is not the case right now.
That is not the case, because certainly we are already having cracks in this particular opposition. So what does that portend for 2027 and Nigeria's opposition future? That's questions that actually beg for answers at this moment.
I hope these politicians are thinking about the future really, because it appears everybody is now subsumed by the heat.
And of course, are they even thinking about the people? That's one question.
In all of this. So whose interests are we pursuing?
Exactly. Those are the questions.
Well, that's why we need to follow the conversations regarding this election to ensure that they are issue-based, not just rhetorics as always.
Most definitely.
All right, top left corner, it says inside cold-blooded murder of Delta artist by ex-SAS officer. We understand the IGP has now, that is the Inspector General of Police, has now ordered dismissal. And we're looking at the Punch, the Sunday Punch newspaper, has now dismissed, ordered the dismissal and thorough investigation of those officers who have found wanting in this regard. Left-hand corner has a picture of Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed. Says Bala quits PDP, Makinde sets to follow. Where are they quitting to now?
That's still the question.
We have seen the APC top leadership visit him. At the point we were told he had been considering moving into the APC. Yeah, whether that's still the case or not, we're not so sure. In the case of Seyi Makinde, just about 3 weeks ago, he was here in Abuja visiting the ADC leadership as well, and he said it was a solidarity visit, even though there are speculations it could be a pointer to the possibility of moving to the ADC. But again, these are all the gimmicks and drama are coming with opposition politics at this point in time.
Most definitely. We just hope, like we said, people
come first.
Exactly. And away from that particular story, we see the big story here. I don't think we've taken it before.
The big story,
yes. It says US-Iran war. FG earns 5 trillion naira. Oil windfall amidst rising fuel hardship. With riders here, the first one says March-April earnings surpass budget estimate after oil hit $120. And the second rider says refinery rejects Brent's pricing, demands cheaper local crude.
Yeah, for a country where, well, as they say, when the price of oil sneezes, the entire economy catches cold. This matters a lot. The World Bank had warned Nigeria just a matter of days ago to say, look, while you're benefiting off of the war in Iran,
anymore.
Right, exactly. I mean, you're surpassing the benchmark for the oil price. You've got to ensure that you do the most with those monies, all right? Do right by your citizens. Yes. We hope that will be the case. But I think we still have 2 more headlines. One says bandits kill 3 Kwara cops as police track suspects. You see, this again is another very disturbing element in this insecurity. We find criminal elements attacking state institutions, all right? The police, the military. In the case of Kwara, like we mentioned a while ago, it was even a police base or a police facility that had been attacked. All right, that is a psychological warfare, and it is very dangerous, especially given where we are today as a nation.
And of course, losing able-bodied policemen, we don't have enough already.
Exactly. So you're depleting the very limited ones we have available. It's quite a sad place to be.
Honestly, it is.
Bishops disagree with Adeboye on marriage advice to men. What is that advice about? Read up on page 5 of the Sunday Punch newspaper. How Lagos couple tortured adopted daughter to death, hid corpse. It's quite a domestic problem. No crossfire, soldiers fired through my nephew's door, slain copper's uncle. Xenophobic attacks, federal government, South African envoy meets in Abuja on Monday. Global Television will bring you those details of that engagement. But those are all the headlines from the Punch newspaper this morning. Please be sure to read up details for yourself as we now go to the Sunday Vanguard newspaper.
Of course, the Sunday Vanguard has its own big story. It starts with politics. It says, fresh alarm over 2027 polls. And writers here say, ex-rec lists dangerous sections of Electoral Act 2026. A second writer says election results transmission and IREV used successfully to conduct 10th off-season elections, and that is it says it's sabotage, and that is an ex-rec speaking there. This particular story, you find details on page 20 of the Sunday Vanguard newspaper, that is. And above the nameplate, we see a story by the left-hand corner that says, Obi Kwankwaso said to quit ADC, announced new platform, Buba Galadima, and he says may head to NDC. We have a few riders by the right-hand corner that says, Obedient speaks of high-level talks. Another one says, ADC vows to field candidates, rejects 2027 exit claims. PDP leaders hold crucial meeting today. Governor Mohammed leads loyalists to APM. And the last rider here says, Wiki's ally picks party presidential forms. Details of this particular story you find on page 3 and page 4 of the Saturday Vanguard newspaper. And coming below that particular story, we see pictures of cars, and the headline says, from United States, Canada, how dangerous Tokunbo cars enter Nigerian roads, with riders that say unsuspecting Nigerians buy to their detriment. Another one says experts warn of such trade, and another one says Customs, FRSC, Transport Ministry officials, others speak on this particular menace of having cars imported from the United States and Canada. Mr. Oyi, have you got anything to say on this particular story?
You see, this has been an issue for a while. I think, it's quite a sensitive reality we're dealing with here. First of all, there's no doubt in the fact that there's a very strong economic strand in this sort of business, this sort of, if you like, import, right? But then again, I realized that a few years ago, there had been this, if you like, threshold to say, look, any vehicle that has been used for more than a certain number of years abroad, regardless of what country, should not, under any circumstance or guise, find its way into our country. For how long that policy lasted, I can't tell. Whether it worked at all, in what specific ways it works, I have no idea. But again, it's a way of saying we must be done by now with this culture, this practice of making our country a dump ground for all of these, if you like, second, third hand, fourth hand items coming from across the world. We must have certain minimum standards. I'd said here on television some 2 years ago how that I have a friend in the UK. So one time, he was talking to me on a particular phone, and his voice sounded like that of a female. I thought someone else had picked his phone. He told me no, that he bought a particular brand. He got a particular brand of phone that could change voices. I was like, well, that's interesting. When he mentioned the brand, I knew such a brand can't find its way into the United Kingdom, again because of standardization.
Yes.
Now, here's what he said. He said he got the phone in Nigeria when he visited, and he took it with him because such a phone does not come into the United Kingdom. Now, what's the point? Is to say that if we want to be taken seriously in the Committee of Nations, we must be serious with how we treat ourselves. We may say, yes, on the one hand, we're trying to give people more access, open up the space. Yeah, so we and Mokhtar can afford vehicles and move around and all that. But we must also look at the longer term implications, all right, of all of these things. Why are these countries moving these vehicles in their numbers into Nigeria and other West African countries? We must ask ourselves, and we must also now, much more importantly, ask ourselves, what are we doing with local manufacturers? Are we supporting them? We understand we have the automobile policy in this country. What does the policy say? In what ways does it support local manufacturers? How many state governments, how many agencies of the government, whether local, state, or federal, are patronizing locally sourced, locally produced vehicles.
Definitely.
We must put an end to that hypocrisy. Otherwise, Mokhtar, you and I will keep coming here and reading headlines like this.
Honestly,
Right.
it's not a pleasant one because, like you said, how do we grow if we don't produce, patronize our own
Right.
product? So we hope and see that in the future, when Nigeria, made in Nigeria's product
Right.
at the forefront of our
course.
daily activities. Away from that particular story, one here says xenophobia, what South Africans should not forget. That is Fani Kayode speaking over there. And a story just below that one, I think that's about the much stories you can take from this particular newspaper. And it's time for us to move to the next paper for review, which happens to be the Nation's newspaper.
Right. Incidentally, again, there's the Bala Mohammed element in the Nation newspaper this morning. Top left corner, it has the picture of the governor there. Says Bauchi governor quits PDP for Allied People's Movement. That's APM. I think the governor has sprung a surprise.
Honestly.
All right.
Because
Now,
people expected maybe the APC
APC or ADC, but he has gone elsewhere. Whatever elsewhere means. But there's a rider to that. It says declares Senate bid. That's the retirement ground for Nigerian governors. 2027, Uzodinma Izunaso in high stakes Olu Senate showdown. Sandy Ono picks PDP presidential nomination form. Those details are on page 5, both the Bala Mohammed and Uzodinma stories. Obi Kwankwaso set to dump ADC for NDC. 3 riders say new platform to be unveiled Monday. That's according to a long-time ally of Kwankwaso, talking about Buba Galadima. Why they are abandoning Atiku and Company. Sounds like a business name, Atiku and Company. Amechi, my supporters don't abuse like Obi Atiku camps. Yes, you had to say that. Lastly, on the front page, again, this time on the foots of the paper, it says, FFK, my ugly encounter with racist South African classmates in UK. That's Femi Fani Kayode, now an ambassador designates there, also talking, sharing his experience on page 2 of the Nation newspaper today. Please be sure to read up details and stay ahead of fake news. Last paper we're looking at today is This Day newspaper, and Mokhtar has those headlines for us.
Of course, This Day newspaper begins with politics is the big story there. It says 2027 as deadline looms, Obi Kwankwaso Atiku drift apart. It has quite a number of riders. The first one says obedient Kwankwasia movement head to NDC. That is awash many papers. Atiku considers quitting. Considers option in ADC as legal battles continue. Another one says Makinde's PDP meets Bala Mohammed, joins APM. The last one here says we remain focused, we present right candidate for 2027. ADC insists. Let's take you above that headline and you see one that by the right hand corner it says Adeboye vows RCCG won't bow to pressure to remove Oluremi Tinubu as pastor. And if you go above the nameplate, you see a bit of a business story there. It says NMDPRA, Dangote's disclosure of aviation fuel price will ensure market stability. And still above that particular story, one says Vehimen as the kicker, Tinubu secured $60 billion energy sector investment commitment in 3 years. He has 1 or 2 riders here that says FAC revenue rose by 107% to hit 22.6 trillion naira. Another one says reports tenfold FID surge, fall in FX premium from 69% to 2.6%. All those stories, you find details on the This Day newspaper.
Incidentally, those are the papers we have for you this morning. As always, we're here to encourage you to read up details. That way you find context, you find perspectives, and then, of course, you are able to stay ahead of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. And as always, too, we'd like to remind you that Global Television, as a broadcast media entity, or the team here on Global Morning, does not in any way contribute to these papers. We'll bring you the headlines just exactly as published by their respective publishers. We're taking a quick break. When we return, we'll put our first conversation on the road for you. Do stay with us.
At Erojim Shoe Factory, excellence starts from the ground up. Located at number 1 Pound Road behind Nigeria Correctional Service, Aba, Abia State. We produce 1,500 high-quality shoes every single day. Paramilitary shoes, safety boots, desert boots, ankle shoes, back-to-school footwear. All crafted with state-of-the-art equipment and built for strength, comfort, and durability. For reliable footwear that stands the test of time, choose Erojim Shoes for better product, strong steps, smart style. For inquiries, call 091-264-53399 or 070-3009-3944 or 080-6573-8374 or call 081-3167-3668. Email info@erojim.com. Website www.erojimdesign.com. Erojim. Walk with confidence. Walk with pride.
Our language, our vibrant culture and colorful tradition, our industrious and hospitable people. This is Nigeria, a nation that prides itself in abundant human and natural resources. From east to west, north to south, we sparkle, we shine, we have a common bond. Fellow Nigerians, let's do away with ethnic, religious and regional sentiments that divide us as a people. God has blessed us and empowered us to find strength in diversity. Let's make our faith and way of worship our source of unity as we build a nation that stays united. Nigeria, together today, together always. This is a public announcement brought to you by Global Television.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all. From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Usoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust our multi-platform news broadcast real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
Global TV News, accurate and unbiased. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe.
At Wichtech Cables,
very, if you like, substantial increase in attacks across the country. In some cases, we're seeing areas where there had been at least a relative peace before now being attacked on many fronts. And again, this raises concerns as to whether or not we're doing enough work as a country to nip the issue of insecurity in the board, or are we just having to set up talk shops as against actually putting in the work to tackle all forms of criminality in our country? We've heard the president, for instance, we've heard governors again remind Nigerians that they're on top of the situation. The same goes for the military and indeed the police. But does it not look like we are being overwhelmed instead by this situation? We're joined this morning by security and intelligence experts, Dr. Steve Okwori, to help us find context and beat this conversation into perspective for you. Dr. Okwori, would like to say a big thank you to you for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I think this is a familiar terrain for you and I, but what can I say? Mokhtar and I will just engage you here for the next couple of minutes. But I'd like us to start from exactly what are the factors that, if you like, redefine the landscape. 1 minute it's in Borno, the next they say, well, they are now somewhere between Kebbi and Sokoto. And just recently, Kwara State has become a hotspot of some kind. Is this not becoming more systematic and structured than we thought before now?
Well, let me start by saying, let me quote Emily Duncan. Emily Duncan is a French sociologist, where he said a society without crime is impossible. I think that's enough notice for us, if we want to borrow the words of Emily Duncan, where a society without crime is inevitable. So what that means for us is that as a country, we're already aware that we're being confronted with insecurity issues. And that's enough notice for us to begin to see how to put, or must have put some measures in place that we don't see escalation. Rather, we should be seeing a decline in the insecurity issues or challenges within Nigeria. But unfortunately, we are seeing escalation. For instance, if you look at terrorism that started in 2009, that time Boko Haram was the particular primary threat. But we have seen splinters group, we have seen factions and all that. There's ISWAP, there's Mahmuda, there's the Lakurawa that came from all the way from Mali, settled in Kebbi for like 6 years or more, and our security intelligence agencies were not aware.
They were not aware?
Yes, they were not aware. They came under the guise that they were providing some sort of security for the communities in Kebbi, because the government was able to provide security.
And these are non-Nigerians?
They are not Nigerians. Right. So they infiltrated that community for a while, and after studying the community, they now struck, killed, and rustled their cattle and all that. But the point I'm making here is that I'm not expecting a Ethiopian society where everything must be perfect. Right. But let us see effort that government and our security agencies are making, and even the civilian population. We're also security managers in this situation, what we have found ourselves. So a lot is not adding up. We are seeing increasing rural banditry activities and opportunistic attacks. When I say opportunistic attack now is that when you look at the crime triangle, you have the desire, the opportunity, and the reward on the triangle. So what government and security agencies need to do is that desire already conceived by these criminal elements, they don't find or have the opportunity to strike. And in the event where they strike, they get their reward either in cash or when they see that the bloods are shed and all that. All these are rewards for them. So there's a lot that government needs to do. And what bothers me is that it's not that the government is not aware what to do. Whatever conversation we are having, they have appeared on various media platforms. Each time I appear, I see myself as a problem solver. If I appear on media platforms like this, I am after solutions. So these solutions that we discuss, the government is also aware of the solutions. But there's nothing more we can do apart from having this conversation. Who hears us? Is the government listening to us that are experts? The fact that we don't put on uniforms, it doesn't mean that we don't know what we're saying, or it doesn't mean that we don't know what we're doing. I'm a researcher, I'm a lecturer, and all that. So I think that there's something that is not adding up. Is it the political will, or some persons that are in power that are supposed, or certainly the responsibility of addressing these security issues, are not doing what they need to do? Are they working with integrity? Integrity is working or doing something when something that is right, when nobody is watching you. Do we have people like that? Are people being punished for failing in their responsibilities? Are people being rewarded? So these are critical questions we need to ask.
Interesting. Mokhtar is going to jump in shortly, but I want to ask you this follow-up question. The possibility that even the fight against insecurity itself has been infiltrated by politics, again, all thanks to politicians. Recently, we heard the president say that they can, whatever they means in this context, they cannot force me out of office by driving insecurity in Nigeria. Is that a deliberate strategy to distract from the focus on fighting insecurity, or is the president informing the country that there are vested interests behind this spate of killings that we see in our country?
Let me start by reminding us that when Mr. President was contesting for the office of president, I remember vividly, I watched him in one of his campaigns where he said, Nigerians shouldn't pity him. Nigerians shouldn't pity him.
Right.
That he asked for the job. Right. Now, before he became president, he was already aware that we had insecurity issues bedeviling Nigeria. Right. If you look at his manifesto, he itemized how he was going to address insecurity issues. So why now is he making such a statement that certain Nigerians or certain class of people or whatever are out there trying to see how to either distract him or paint his or dent his government and all that? Right. These challenges have been there, right? So for me, that's just a political statement, because I watched the Senate president in one of these events also when he told Mr. President that Mr. President has performed excellently well in all sectors, including addressing insecurity, but there are some persons that are trying to see how to dent his government by coming with these insecurity issues and all that. And he's giving Mr. President that 2 weeks after his election, insecurity issues will go down and all that. But
does that give you a concern, that sort of statement?
Why not? So
2 weeks after the election.
So does that mean that Nigerians should continue being killed until after election? Then we begin to look at situations where the security issues begin to go. You see, we have allowed politics to come into this security space. Whether we like it or not, Nigerians are being killed, Nigerians are paying ransom and all that. These issues are not new. They've been there. So, unfortunately for us, this insecurity issue started in this very Fourth Republic.
Right.
Terrorism in 2009, banditry activities in this Fourth Republic, kidnapping for ransom, the escalation and all that started in this very Fourth Republic. So, are these the reasons why we have this political class in power? For me, we shouldn't be seeing or hearing excuses from them. Yeah, the primary purpose of government is there.
Right.
It's clear in the Constitution. So are they fulfilling that section of the Constitution with regards to protection of lives of Nigerians and property of Nigerians? So when we begin to look at it side by side, it's now left for Nigerians to answer the question if government is fulfilling that primary. They said primary, not secondary. Primary purpose of government.
This is first before anything else.
Anything else. But we are seeing a lot of speeches in security events. I think that it's high time we drop these speeches that we make without action. Because what we need is, yes, as much as effort is commendable, but results is what we really want. Are we seeing the results? Can you move from one location to another without fear, anxiety? I traveled all the way from Biu to Abuja.
That's in Borno State.
Yes. I lectured at the Nigerian Army University. I traveled all the way from Biu to Abuja. I decided to travel by road. But man, I wasn't comfortable. So why should we live a life like that? So these are the concerns.
Now, I'd like to look at it from the angle of the military and its strategies, linking it to intelligence gathering, because it seems like the terrorists seem to be like a step ahead.
Absolutely.
We see that the military doesn't get the intelligence before those attacks happen. So, are we going to see the intelligence gatherings like the weakest link in our coordinated effort, and how do we bridge that gap to see that the military is a step ahead of the terrorists, basically?
Yes, you see, what we currently observe in this country is that we're more reactive than proactive. You understand? And that has been a challenge to the military and all the other security agencies that we have. Let me tell you, the military and the other security agencies, they are not ghosts to find, for us to see them in every community. Now, the military needs the civilian population to work with, for them to be effective in their security operations. What am I saying is, just the way I started, I said we are also security managers, the civilian population also security managers. There's already, crime is local. There's already a weak intelligence-led operations when we begin to look at what we are currently seeing. The military need information from the civilian population for them to work with. Now, if there's no trust between the military and the civilian population, you expect that information to come from the civilian population. Don't forget that intelligence is first of all an information that has gone through a process, right? You evaluate it, look at it, and all that. Is this truly an information that we need to work with? If they process it and they see that it has metamorphosed into intelligence, at that point you begin to ask questions: is it an actionable intelligence or a non-actionable intelligence? If it's an actionable intelligence, what do you expect? Quick response. And unfortunately for us, the terrorists and the other criminal gangs are always ahead, just the way you said, of law enforcement agents. So how do we need to see how to address, to nip in the bud, this challenge? Because when there's failure of intelligence, you cannot get any result.
Right.
It's just like an already blind man walking in the dark. How do you expect anything good to come out of there? So intelligence failure has been our challenge. For us to get it right, the military, the police, and the other security agencies must work with our civilian population. Right. Because this civilian population, some of them have this local knowledge already. You know, when they see somebody that is not from their immediate community, they already have those, since they are within their environment and all that, they already know that this person is not from our community. In the event when they want to even pass the information to the relevant security agencies, which channel do they even use? So, you know, emergency response time in Nigeria is already a defect. Right. So if they pass that information, how too quick? We have seen in this country where there was killing in some part of Plateau. The military said they couldn't get in there because of proximity, access road and all that. But for me, these are excuses. We have helicopters, choppers. In Nigeria, let me tell you, addressing security issues in the world, anywhere, is not cheap. We have the resources.
But what about the security votes, for example, at the subnational level, and all of the large figures we hear about every budgetary cycle? Are you saying we're not putting our money where our mouth is?
That's what it means. Governors see these security votes as their personal resources. These resources are meant to address insecurity.
So they cannot be held accountable in that regard.
That's the problem. Who asks them questions? We have seen situations in this country, governors hire special advisors on security. They go bring in former major generals or some technocrats that are grounded in security space.
Right.
They don't even listen to them. I have done research in 1 or 2, 3 states. Governors don't even listen to the special advisors that they hired on security matters to advise them.
So those advisors are advising themselves.
They're just advising themselves. Any proposal they put forward, the governors don't even pay attention to them. So that takes us to the point where I mentioned lack of political will.
Right.
Because you are there as governor, you swore an oath to also protect the citizens of the state that you are governing, your state. You also promised them security. And when it has to do with security, the governors begin to look up to the president as if it's the president's sole responsibility. They try to put themselves by the corner. They come under the guise that they are just they are not chief security officers of their state.
They are figureheads.
They are just figureheads. They cannot give commissioners of police order for them to comply or obey. They need to call at the federal level to see how to. But these are for me are excuses. The commissioner of police in various states, they already have the mandate, the responsibility to see how to address insecurity in their states. So if somebody, a community is being confronted by bandits or criminal gangs, the commissioner of police will sit, put his hands in his between his legs and be waiting for order from Abuja before they deploy police officers to go and see how to address the issue. So these are excuses for me. Nigeria, as a state, we have leaders at the federal, state, and local level for them to put themselves in the position where they should address insecurity. See, for me, enough of excuses. The resources are there. Security votes are there. You see governors, they have personalized these security votes. The essence of security votes is to see how to address security issues in your state. Which effort are they making? Some governors are trying, but some are not able to do anything at all.
You mentioned governors. I remember seeing a governor, I think it's the northeast part of the country, where he came on national TV and said he has the monitoring technology. He sees these terrorists on his phone, but he has...
That was on for state governor.
He complained that he didn't have these powers to actually give orders. So is that an excuse, or is it a legitimate cause?
It's an excuse. An excuse. Let me tell you, governors have the power to convey state security meetings at their states. In that state security...
And they get briefings too.
Exactly. In that state security meeting at the state level, commissioners of police, heads of brigades or GOCs that are in the state, immigration commanders, and civil
DSS directors.
All of them, they come for that meeting. So if he can call such a meeting, I don't know why he will come on air and be saying that he doesn't have what it takes to get to where these criminals are. When you have the capacity to call for such meetings at the state level, just the way the president calls for security briefings and service chiefs and the other IGPs and others, they come gather to give him briefs. So it's also applicable at the state level. It should be applicable at the local government level as well. But you need resources to be able to call for such meetings. How many of these resources, state and local government allocation, goes to the local government, where the chairman of the local government can use these resources to call for such meeting? I said crime is local. A traditional ruler from his community can come with an information that is very important, that the DPO or the head of DSS at the local government level can use that information to work with. In the event where the traditional ruler finances himself to come for such meeting, and at the end of the day he goes back transporting himself back, you think he will come for another meeting? Because we need resources. You must empower them to come and to go back. Because these people, they come with information that is key. Now you need this information to work with. So a whole lot is not adding up. And we know the issues, the government knows the issue. So how do we need to sit up? We need to sit up. And that is where my concern and my worry is that we must have people that have that will, that deliberate intention that our people are being killed. We've sworn oath to protect the citizens of this country. But here we are, they are being killed and you are playing politics with it. Saying 2 weeks after election, the issue of insecurity will die. So people are trying to push me out using the insecurity. And these are just political statements. We should be serious.
There's something else I'd like us to look at. We've seen the president hold meetings with security chiefs. I mean, at the very top of it. We've seen cases even before now where there were vehement calls to say, look, we've got to change the security chiefs. And we saw that change ultimately happen. At least under former President Muhammadu Buhari, blessed memory. We've also seen several instances where the president says, look, I've instructed the Minister of Defense, all of the architecture in defense to move to the northeast, to move to the northwest, and so on and so forth. Are those just political moves for, optics, or are they real, concrete, substantial efforts at fighting insecurity?
What was the result after giving such order or directive? We saw in this country where Mr. President ordered the Minister of State for Defense to go to the northwest and see that notorious bandit, Bello Turji, be fished out. He went and came back. Did he achieve that? The answer is no. What statement did the president say with regards to that? So those statements for me, we have president and commander-in-chief. In this instance, do we have a president and we don't have a commander-in-chief? Because as a commander-in-chief, if you issue a directive or give an order, we should see the result.
Right.
We should see the result. It's not just mere relocation. After 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, you come back without achieving the result. That's the way I said. I said effort is commendable, but what we want is result. These bandits are killing our people. They are killing Nigerians, whether we like it or not. As we're having this conversation in your studio at the moment, the next second you won't know where attacks will happen. Personnel are being killed, civilian population are being killed. Even when we went to try Liberia and Sierra Leone on a peacekeeping mission. How many of our generals did they kill in a foreign land?
And that was a conventional war.
Yes. But here we are. Bandits, terrorists, coming into our military bases, killing our officers. For crying out loud. These are people that are armed constitutionally to protect Nigeria, to protect us citizens, and to also protect themselves. They are armed, and they are still being killed in such a manner. Then wherein lies the hope of you and I that are online citizens that will move around without even buttons?
We've seen the U.S. I know Mokhtar is itchy to ask a question. We've seen the U.S. interfere in, if you like, domestic affairs lately, especially as it has to do with insecurity. Of course, we know what happened on Christmas Day in Sokoto, which became a very strong basis for conversation around where we are in terms of insecurity. There have been calls by several stakeholders, including those who are politically exposed, to say, look, it's high time we invited some foreign, if you like, entities into this space, because apparently we're overwhelmed, we can't deal with this all by ourselves anymore. But beyond that, we now see individuals within the U.S. Public system mentioning names in Nigeria. For example, the latest one is a state senator who now says that by all means, this gentleman, Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, should be relieved of his job. Raising very strong allegations that is involved in the state of insecurity in Nigeria as it stands today. When you look at those sort of scenarios, what are your thoughts?
You see, we don't have enough information here, even when we try to shy away from it.
Right.
What it has to do with such information and data, it's out there. The Americans are out there, they don't joke with the data.
So you're saying whatever intel they have is credible?
If you look at it the way it is, didn't you see the current governor of Zamfara State also laid accusation
against his predecessor?
Exactly, that he was harboring bandits in government house. So this information are out there.
In government house?
Yes, the information are out there in Vanguard newspaper. The governor said it. But you see, it is about politics. Because the governor that said that this man houses bandits in government house when he was governor, they now belong to the same political party. They are fraternizing now.
But just to bump him, no intention to be rude, but one would have thought that, once Governor Dauda made such a statement, that his predecessor was harboring bandits in the government house, that the DSS would have waded into it at that point in time. Don't you think, again, that's a lacuna of some kind?
Absolutely. It's a lacuna. And that's where I want to take us to where, are we serious in addressing this insecurity? That's the question. It's very critical. We must keep asking this question because we know what to do. See, I am telling you that the government and our security agencies, they know what to do. You cannot have a military base, terrorists will come, invade your base. You don't have the technology for when an intruder enters your area, your territory, you have an emergency alarm that will trigger, that will make you become mentally alert that somebody or an intruder has invaded your territory. For crying out loud. What kind of country is this, for goodness sake? From April 2021 to August 2022, 18 months, 60 military bases were attacked in this country.
16 in 18 months.
Wow. And we lost approximately 750 soldiers. I'm telling you.
And then you're asking yourself, how many soldiers make a troop?
See the situation we have found ourselves? If you look at the current African Union survey in terms of military capability and strength, Nigeria is ranked number 3. We have Egypt and Nigeria ahead of us. So how did they carry out that survey for Nigeria to be ranked number 3? And we are seeing our military being killed like chicken. A general killed, colonels, commanding officers killed, and what kind of, it beats my imagination. The question is, the last budget before this 2026 budget, the defense and security has the highest number of figure. 5.something trillion in this 2026 budget. 4.91 trillion or so in the 2025. These resources, where is it going to? Are we using the resources for the purpose? Or the monies are being diverted? We see 7 military officers still serving are multi-millionaires. Outside the shores of this country, you become a millionaire as a military officer after retirement. You become a military consultant or a contractor. That's when you begin to make millions. But here, you are serving, you are a multi-millionaire. There's a general that died, his family are in court because he has is the polygamous home. Come and see what this general has. Choice areas, property and all that. Where did they get this money from? And here we are, we cannot ask the military questions. Are you using the money? Mr. President said he cannot prove the military.
So does that not point to the fact that we have now commercialized insecurity?
The National Assembly has the mandate, the constitutional mandate, to carry out oversight functions on ministry, department, agencies, and including the military. How well are they carrying out these oversight functions with regards to the military? Effective oversight functions for me exposes corruption, inefficiency. We're seeing inefficiency in as much as we want to commend the military for what they are doing, the effort they are doing. In the month of April, about 200 terrorists were killed, 300 arrested. So we should ask questions. There's need for accountability. There's need for transparency. Let us know how these resources is going. Are the monies being released to them? If yes, are they using it for the purpose? We cannot have these monies being released and what we are seeing is not commensurate to what we are expecting from them. The overwhelmness of the police is what has led to military operations all over Nigeria.
Which is an aberration.
Of course. And for me, it has made the police so relaxed because the military has taken over the operations.
It's not a good place.
It's not a good one.
Another thing
and they keep telling us that they are the lead agency. That's the police now. They are the lead agency. How well are they leading?
Right. It's an irony.
So another aspect that bothers me a lot is one of I think I would describe it as civilian casualties. When we see those operations take place targeting terrorists, sometimes we see that the terrorists are targeted and then we have civilians affected. Other times we see maybe it's a wrong intel and then we see bombs dropped on civilians, and this has been a recurring decimal. So why does this happen and how can it be mitigated to the various measures?
That's talking about collateral damage.
You see, when you're embarking on such military operations, collateral damage is not ruled out completely.
Anywhere in the world?
Yes. But I'm not saying it's not avoidable. It's avoidable, especially when you carry out the required precision, as in you are sure of who these enemies are. But ruling out completely collateral damage is not possible. But when you have situation where you wrongly interpret and everybody that, for instance, the Tudunbiri incident in Kaduna, they were carrying out a Islamic festival, and the military, the army drone particularly, the operator wrongly interpreted what he saw and killed about 86 or more persons that
innocent souls,
innocent people. That can be condemned. You understand? But situation where you have a territory where it's dominated by these criminal elements, and sometimes they try to bring this innocent civilian population as shield, you don't have any option.
That's a strike.
Like the one we saw in Borno, where the governor said that market was
closed for a while. But they were there. The governors of Borno and Yobe justified that the market had been closed for like 5 years or more. But these Boko Haram members find themselves in that area and all that. Such operations, you expect that they be collateral. In Algeria, do you know how they reduced kidnapping in that country? Algerian government took a decision that in the event where kidnappers kidnap, both adopters and adoptees, they will finish them.
So we're not going to prioritize the issue of how to ransom, how to get the captives released.
Yes, so when you kidnap, you as the kidnapper, you already know that in the event when they trace and know your location,
everybody goes down.
So it now led to go to the point where kidnappings in Nigeria now stopped. In Afghanistan, they execute you and publicly hang you in a public square
for kidnapping.
Yes. Like we have the Unity Fountain here. They will hang you publicly. People will pass and so all these were serving as deterrents.
But where do you now place issues of human rights violations alongside these deterrents?
You see, when we talk about human rights, it's an international thing, which is understandable. I attended the course where I had some military officers in attendance. The Executive Secretary of Human Rights Commission was the guest speaker. When he was talking about human rights, emphasizing human rights and all that, at some point, the hall became almost empty. The officers left. Some of them returned from the Northeast operations and all that. And
so perhaps what he was saying was strongly at variance with the realities of the ground.
Exactly. Because these officers, they managed to come back alive. They killed these terrorists and all that, and you're coming to tell them about human rights and all. So I think the law, if you look at our law very critically, the law tends to favor criminals more than victims of crime in this country. And I take it to the Operation Safe Corridor in Gombe State. People that killed, ravaged communities. At the end of the day, about 744 of them, we went through a process of training, rehabilitation, and all that. At the end of the day, they were one Ashwebi. You didn't see it?
Of course, it was viral.
They were one Ashwebi. And they have asked them to go back and reintegrate. The victims.
We're told that they are repentant now. They've changed their ways. Are there no metrics by which we can determine what the true situation of their hearts is, so to speak?
It isn't for me. It is not our responsibility.
And of course, another thing again, Mr. Oye, those people, don't you think, since they know the bad world, that now if they're actually repentant, that they can serve credible intelligence?
I love the word used. If they are actually repented or repentant. Now, they can also serve as informants. They can pretend that they have surrendered. They have come into that facility.
To infiltrate.
Exactly. So they can also take information from there. As they go back, they can go back and meet their fellow commanders and all that, and tell them this is what we saw in this facility and all that. So it's both ways. I listen to me. It's both ways. But let me tell you something. It is not our responsibility to forgive terrorists. It's not our responsibility. Our responsibility, if you ask me, is to send terrorists to God. It's not left for God
to determine what he does with
them. Yes. Sincerely. So I am talking about where lies justice for victims now in this instance. The victims are left in IDP camps, languishing in pain. They have their livelihood gone.
No idea where they are heading. Let's talk about this whole concept of, you hear the army, the military generally say, look, we have adopted kinetic and non-kinetic approaches. What exactly does that even mean within the context of the reality today?
Now, kinetic is use of force. You know?
Right.
And you see, the use of force is what is spreading these criminal gangs or making them locate from where there's this pressure on them down to
some safe havens.
Yes, like Kwara,
even Ekiti now,
and all that. So that's kinetic, use of force, because there are some that are hardened, no matter how you want to pamper them. And my worry about this repentant Boko Haram is that some of them did not willingly surrender.
They are not remorseful.
Yes, they did not willingly surrender. Some of them were as a result of this pressure, this firepower. That man, let me just give up and all that. So some of them came in like that, you know. So the point I am making here is that kinetic is the use of force. The non-kinetic is what Operation Safe Corridor is doing now, and some other ways. Okay, let us try and see how to reduce poverty and all that. Some unemployment, you know. So government tries to say, okay, let us get them engaged through maybe skills, acquisitions, and all that. Because some of them also, there are some that have some local grievances that they're using it to exploit whatever they are doing. The intention, government is not paying attention to them, you know, and all. But all that for me are triggers, but they are excuses. Right? Let us deal with criminals. We have our laws. The Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act, we kept amending it. In that act, there's a section that talks about if you and I and Mutar sit down and we are having a conversation, how to carry out acts of suicide bombing and all that. Not necessarily embarking on it.
Just the intention and
that's conversation. The minimum jail term is 20 years. Here we have having people that have committed the act, and you are telling us that they have repented. It doesn't make any sense.
There are experts like yourself whose position is that, look, we shouldn't treat this as a Nigerian problem. We should rather treat it as a regional problem. They're saying that it must be seen as a West African problem, first of all. But then it doesn't look like West African countries are at the same page right now. Look at Mali Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger going in one direction. They are no longer part of ECOWAS, at least in principle as we know it. Are we not seeing a depletion among West African nations as it has to do with the fight against insecurity?
Absolutely. Before now, Niger was part of the multinational joint task force.
Right.
But as a result of their exit from ECOWAS, they have also pulled out from that multinational joint task force. Of course, it will affect the fight against terrorism.
Right.
The Global Terrorism Index of 2025, Burkina Faso was ranked number 1. Mali was 4th, Niger 5th, Nigeria 6th out of 163 countries in that survey. The current Global Terrorism Index, Nigeria moved from 6th to 4th. You know the implication of that. And there are key indicators that this Institute for Economics and Peace depend on. Number of incidents, fatalities, kidnappings that ransom are collected, injuries. So just imagine the incidents we've been having in time past in the last 1 year. Now made Nigeria to move from 6th position to 4th. We are fighting a common enemy, and we need that regional collaboration. Countries come together to see how to fight, because terrorism is a global menace.
Right.
You understand? So we must see that we come together and fight it. In as much as Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger exited from ECOWAS, for me, I don't see them refusing to come together with other countries around the West African sub-region to see how to confront this common enemy. I did a paper on the terrorism in the Sahel, attacks on military base. I did a comparative analysis looking at countries that has military rule and countries with democracy. But I discovered that the type of government doesn't necessarily address these issues of terrorism. Look at Mali at the moment. Their Minister of Defense was killed. Look at what is happening in Burkina Faso.
That was a huge compromise.
Even with the military junta,
Right.
since 2021, 2022, they've had military rule. Nothing has changed in terms of addressing insecurity issues, particularly terrorism. And it was the reasons that they gave why they had to take over. So for me, I think we need that commitment as citizens.
Regardless of what kind of government you have in place.
Yes, that total commitment. Let us see how we come together as a country. The minister of the Chief of Defense Staff's conference last year or so, when Musa was the CDS, Burkina Faso did not come. Mali did not come. Niger already sent one of their colonel in Nigeria to go and. But you see, we are talking about insecurity. There's need for us to come together. That collaboration is needed. Everybody, you want to fight the war individually? Even at that point, they are forming an alliance. What effect are we seeing? Are we seeing the result? So, for me, I think that there's need for that collaboration. Whether we like it or not, the more we fight together, I think the better for us to confront this common enemy.
Now, one thing again, Doctor, is we've heard conversations around the proliferation of arms and the porosity of our border.
Absolutely.
How has that worsened our own insecurity burden? How can we find a way around it?
No, it has worsened a lot. As I speak to you, we have about 7.2 million arms and ammunition in circulation in Nigeria.
But we keep hearing that government is mopping up these items.
The last time they mopped that I saw was just 13,000.
That's a far cry.
A drop in an ocean. And we have Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons that is domiciled in the Office of the National Security Advisor. Why was it established? Why was it created? And I'm able to understand that we have zonal offices. And I saw 13,000.
Out of 7.2
million.
That's not even.
So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why these guys they keep tormenting us. The porosity of our borders What effort are we making in that regard? For me, we are not making any concerted effort. These criminals, foreigners, they come in, collaborate with our domestic criminals here, and inflict these pains. I did my PhD thesis on kidnapping for ransom. I engaged some victims, and some of them told me that the language that some of these people speak are not even Nigerian language. So it means we have foreigners in this country collaborating with our domestic criminals and carrying out these acts of because these foreign criminals, they don't know, they're not too familiar with the terrain.
Right.
So their collaboration is enhancing these acts of criminality. How do they even communicate? It's another thing. So we need a lot, we need to do a lot. Technology-wise, what do we have to monitor movement of bandits or terrorists from one location to another? Do we have that technology? The answer is yes. Are we applying it? You see a lot of videos on the social media where Nigerians are beaten, tortured by these criminal elements. They are barefaced, they're not wearing masks. How many are they arrested? How many? So we have a lot to learn from our history, our experience, and our current realities. But what are we doing? We don't even care about history. We don't even care about our experience. Go and ask victims, before you forgive terrorists or bandits, go and ask victims the question. Because the victims that are interviewed, they say they don't wish their enemy
to face such ordeals.
Yes. So you are forgiving them because you've not experienced what these victims went through. So if you experience what they went through, you will be thinking of forgiving them. Telling us that they have now repented. And you have told us that they have gone back to their communities and all. What monitoring mechanism have you put in place to be able to monitor them that they don't go back to their vomit? There's nothing like that in place.
I want us to talk about state police. You and I had mentioned that in the previous engagement, but now it appears like a recurrent decimal. Where do you stand, Doc, as it has to do with state police?
I have two sides to the coin when it has to do with state police. One, it will enhance this deficiency with regards to intelligence failure that we keep experiencing. Because here we're talking about people that will be recruited from their immediate community. Language will not be a barrier. Unlike when you send Adamu or Musa to the east as a police officer, language is a barrier already.
Right.
Where criminals sit and plan and speak in the language that the Adamu does not understand, it doesn't have anything to do. But state police, these people will come from their immediate community. Language will not be a barrier. They are familiar with the terrain, their environment, and all that. So when it has to do with local knowledge advantage, it's already a plus. Are you with me?
Right.
Then we're talking about faster response time. That has been a challenge. It is when they attack communities in Nigeria, that is when you begin to see deployment of tactical intelligence squad by the police, military begin to deploy soldiers and all that. When the damage is done, for me that's medicine after death. So we're talking about faster response time. It's an advantage when you have state police.
Right.
Right. Then there are other advantages that are there, but the other side of the coin, funding will be a challenge. Here we have governors or states are struggling to still pay salaries. The federal police is still being confronted with a whole lot of challenges. The federal government is unable to fulfill those challenges that the federal police is being confronted with. This year, Nigerian police will be 96 years old, 4 years to become a century. It was created in 1930, and still there are a whole lot that is being confronted by the police for them to work well.
That's the conventional police?
Yes. You know, so funding will be a challenge. There is also this risk of political misuse. Governors can use it as a tool to go after opposition.
But there are people who believe, on the contrary, Doc, that we are just making a mountain out of a molehill when we reason along those lines.
No. I have given us advantage.
Yes.
Where if we have state police, where we'll see the effect. You understand? But it doesn't take away the fact that we shouldn't mention this area of it. We must mention this aspect.
Yeah, the government is already exploiting and abusing the conventional police as it stands today.
Exactly. They are also using this conventional police. But just imagine where they have total control.
So it will be worse.
It will be worse. It will be worse. But it doesn't take away the fact that we should not establish state police if we have the resources. But are we putting the cat before the horse? I saw the current IGP constituted a committee, all made up of police people.
Was that an error?
It was an error. Only the chairman of the committee was a civilian. The other members were all police officers, retired or serving. It was an error.
Who else should have been there?
You are talking about governors to own a state police. Did they have a representative in that committee? How many traditional rulers were in that committee?
Civil society.
How many civil society groups were in that committee? We're talking about state police that will be controlled and funded by state government. So, it did not carry, I think that number was so small. Yes, I'm not saying that you would have involved police officers, but we expected that. I expected that I would have seen some others, groups or critical stakeholders supposed to be part of that committee. It's a state police, it's a state government affair.
Right.
Now, whatever, he came out with a 17-page report and all that. So I haven't taken my time to look at the report anyway. But the point here is that it's the state affair for them to have their own police. Now, at the end of the day, who now possibly controls I talked about the cat before the horse. We needed an amendment of that constitution of Nigeria that will accommodate the creation of state police, where governors or states should have police. Has that portion or section of that constitution has it been amended? The answer is no. I'm aware that the Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps is chairman of the committee for the amendment of that section of the constitution. I haven't had any favorable report or outing with regards to that. And it takes us to that point where we are still asking questions, why, if we have that political will. Since 2023, we'll be talking about state politics. A term is gone. Now, it is politics. They want to return back to power. So, we're not looking at any possibility of that session being amended in this tenure.
I think at this point, we just allow Mokhtar throw in one more question before.
Based on his analysis, you seem to favor the creation of state police.
I don't have an issue with that.
Exactly, but what would you recommend as measures to tackle those lacuna we talked about, from abuse by governors to funding challenges and all of that? How do we have an ideal state police when it comes into effect?
I think we need to look at the legal framework, right? Because we must have a legal framework in place that will guide the operations of state police if it comes to fusion, right? We must have a legal framework so that it will. Some of these excesses that we are talking about, we shouldn't see it. But in Nigeria, our people, the political class and all that, they have their way of manipulating things, to see how it will suit them. Right. So in all of this, if we intend as a country, as a people, to do what is right, we're not doing what is right. If we do what is right in everything that we'll be saying here, do what is right with integrity, we have that commitment. This country belongs to us. Right. The people that are occupying offices, how many of them are doing what they need to do? How many of them are punished for failing in their responsibility? How many of them are rewarded? Taxpayers' money paid to them on a monthly basis, where they are not fulfilling the reason why they are occupying these offices. So we need to ask these questions. Are they being punished for failing?
Interesting. Well, we'd like to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Stephen Quarry, who is a security and intelligence expert, for coming to speak to us this morning on these very important issues. We'll continue to track these developments regarding the state of security in our dear nation, Nigeria, for you. We're taking a quick break at this point, everyone. When we return, we'll break it down to regional developments for you in Nigeria. What exactly are the commissions doing vis-a-vis the mandates setting them up. All of that and more after this break. Please do stay with us.
A new Imo is on the rise. In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodinma's leadership has left the pages of manifestos to become real actions and achievements. Transformations that piece by piece feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace to thrive, and in Imo, we are not leaving it to chance. From land to sky to river deep, guardians are always watching, protecting dreams and opportunities. If you go to the quiet shore of Orashi Power, you will see the awakening of a hydropower roaring to electrify and energize a blossoming economy. The change is visible. The heartland of the East is under construction as new roads are threading together once forgotten places. Industry is humming again and communities are alive. At the center of it all, a digital revolution is rising. A new ministry with a new mission. Not just cables and codes, but capacity. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build a digital future. And as Orashi Power goes up, so does Imo, lifting with it the hopes of a hard-working people. A new Imo is on the rise.
Well, second time around, but this time we're looking at a different subject altogether. For several years now, we've seen the need for regional development, where many experts and technocrats as well say that each region must bring its own strength, so to speak, to the table. By that, what they're saying is that every state, every region has got its unique advantage, and as such, when we aggregate all of this, it will drive the national development, has become a song on our lips for several decades. As it stands today, incidentally, we have many development commissions set up across this country from one region or the other. The challenge has been the clarity of purpose in terms of the mandates setting up these commissions and exactly in what specific ways they are making impact across the different regions. This morning, we're joined by Manuel Ozamena, policy consultant, to help our viewers understand exactly what the journey has been like and what we should be expecting going forward. Ima, I'd like to say a big thank you to you for finding out time to join us this Sunday morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's first of all begin by the setting up of these commissions. The first we had, at least in this Fourth Republic, was the Niger Delta Development Commission, the NDDC, and we saw a few others followed afterwards, including the NEDC, the Northeast Development Commission. Of course, we have seen the Southeast Development Commission. Are we just setting up these commissions for the purpose of pacifying these regions, or are we being intentional as to what we want to achieve with them?
I think perhaps we should begin with a historical context.
And that will make a lot of sense.
Yeah, to the entire thing about the commission. What you call NDDC, The bill was the second bill proposed by if not the first, by President Olusegun Obasanjo in 1999. And it's actually a repeal of the UNPADEC bill of 1992. Yeah, UNPADEC was Oil Mineral Producers Development
Commission.
The Development Commission. The idea was Niger Delta was seeing there's environmental degradation in Niger Delta. So how do you address the issue of impact of oil, exploration activities in the Niger Delta? So to perhaps address series of agitation. So the administration of General Muhammadu Buhari set up UNPADEC. So NDDC, actually Niger Delta Development Commission, is a repeal of UNPADEC bill. So if you go to Port Harcourt, their offices and whatever assets and liability were inherited by NDDC. That's the context. And what you could see, they were addressing particular issues. This is the region that brings you could say over 90% of the nation's wealth in terms of the money we spend. The budget is spent on oil price. I mean, whether it's $65 per barrel that we're anticipating, that's how you set up the budget. So, and there were complaints. So that had to be done. So that's the context we need to understand it. The entire states that are covered under UNPADEC are also covered in the NDDC bill. The oil producing states from Ondo down to Abia to Bayelsa, so the entire that region. So that's one. That's the context. Then you now have when insurgency became a big issue in the Northeast, and perhaps the government would have felt, how do we mobilize resources about rebuilding the Northeast, what we call post-crisis stabilization process. And initially there were victim support funds and all that. If you remember, the government of President Jonathan set up that victim support fund that was chaired by the retired General T.Y. Danjuma.
Right.
So the idea is mobilize resources, provide oversight, and ensure that there's a post-stabilization, rehabilitation of the entire process. If you go to Northeast Development Commission Bill website now, you ask them their mandate, they say is to coordinate that entire activities of whether support from donors, from government and all that. But the question to ask is, if you ask me, so I've talked about the first generation development commission, so Northeast could be the second generation development commission.
Right.
But what you now call the third generation development commission, Southeast, Southwest, North Central, North West, do we really need them? That's a huge question we might need to ask.
It is a case of source for the goose and source for the gander.
No, it's actually political expediency. Look, politicians play mind game. That's the truth. And they do it because they understand that the people out there, citizens, most often in their brain, they think they are not intelligent. That's one. And also in their brain, what they think is, what do citizens want? Somebody from Northwest, somebody from Southeast, somebody from Southwest say, oh, they are creating for others. No, which one is for our own?
Also give us one.
I remember having to ask a senior legislative aide. I said, why are you guys passing this bill? You know what he told me? He said, no, how about you give to A, why don't you give to B?
Right.
But again, does it serve our purpose in the broad sense of that word? The answer is no. If you ask me, from day one, I've spoken on this, in other forums, and say, look, you don't duplicate functions through duplicating bureaucracy, because that's simply what we've just had. When you duplicate bureaucracies, it means the expense for the real development work is gone. You now use it paying for offices, paying for phone calls, paying for
with no value.
If you ask me, it adds zero value.
Well, proponents will tell you, sir, that it's to bring the development closer to the people.
Let's look at another context. In 1930s, I think around 1934 or thereabout, the British government, by 1914, Nigeria, you had three separate parts that constituted Nigeria. You had the colony of Lagos. It was independent. You had the Protectorate of Northern Nigeria, with their headquarters in Lokoja. That of Lagos was in Lagos. And then the Protectorate of Southern Nigeria in Calabar. So, on January 1, 1914, what the British government simply did was to merge them together for administrative conveniences. And the moment you unified it, that was the Amalgamation Ordinance of 1914, January 1. So, by 1936, if you check the 1936 Constitution, it now says Nigeria was now divided into three regions for administrative convenience. So what it meant is that you had Eastern region, you had Northern region, and Western region for administrative convenience. And within this region, you now have provinces. Provinces like some sort of subset. And that's how it got to up till 1951. If you check 1951 Constitution, it's a colonial constitution. Up to 1959 Constitution, which they call 1960 Constitution, and 1963. By 1960, we had the same three regions. But in this time, you had a premier sitting in Kaduna for northern Nigeria. You had a premier sitting in Ibadan for western Nigeria. The federal capital was in Lagos. And then you had a premier sitting in Enugu for eastern region. By 1963, an additional region was created, which was Midwest region. In fact, that's the only region that would have been created by the Nigerian parliament in the political history of Nigeria. So, with Midwestern region carved out of the Western region, Midwestern region is simply what you call, later was renamed Bendel State. Today Edo and Delta. So at that point, you didn't have states. The 12-state structure came on May 29th, 1967. And it was one of the issues that led to the Civil War. Because for the military administrator of the Eastern region, Colonel Meka Ojukwu, who now said, look, we will resist balkanization of the Eastern region. So, and that's part of, if you check the documents around Aburi Accord and all that, those management of that crisis, it's the balkanization, what they call 12-state structure. Now, what has happened is that for some political, actors, they are still, people arguing about, let's go back to regionalism. I'm sure you heard that argument, that we had more development when we were regional. Now, the first question to ask, what was the population of Nigeria at independence? 49 million.
Okay, so are we saying that as it stands today, the challenge is that times have changed, realities today are not the same as what we had several decades ago, and as such, we have to align with the current socio-economic issues.
Basic question to ask, what is the governance structure of Nigeria as at today? It's 36 states. That's what is recognized in 1999 Constitution. So, in fact, the entire idea of 6 geopolitical zones, you can't find that idea. It's not inserted in the Constitution. Apart from Abacha, there's a draft Constitution by General Sani Abacha that came out of the 1995 Constitutional Conference, but it was not accepted. You can't find one single word every geopolitical region. So geopolitical region is more of the mantra that politicians push. That's number one. Then secondly, now the first question to ask, if you're creating regional development commission, what happens to the state? You need to abrogate the state and hand over governance to this. I was engaged in a public debate. One of them was a Southeast Development Commission. Now, there's a conversation in National Assembly. They were to review Senate Committee on Southeast Development Commission was to review their bill, their budget proposal. And a senator from the Southeast said, look, this commission, from my purview of this budget, you are budgeting for roadshow in London, roadshow in Germany, and you are budgeting for stakeholders meeting, and there's no single grain of salt on putting down infrastructure. Because if you ask me, you are rather an interventionist agency. State governments have responsibility of developing their state. So if there's a gap somewhere, get to the governor and ask him, oh, Your Excellency, where is the gap? So when you see these guys, I'm sorry for using this term, these guys operating as if they are running a parallel government. So for me, that's actually so it shows that aim is defeated. Is either that person holding that position is trying to use it to build for political clout in future, because it doesn't make sense. You are holding a roadshow in London for who and for what? The answer, the response they give, want to attract investment. I say, what investment? First of all, you don't have any territory as a development commission. There's no defined territory.
So on what basis and on whose behalf are you doing that?
No, that's the question. You can't sign a CFO based on 1999 constitution. There are only two people who can sign a CFO based on 1999 constitution: the President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, who can sign CFO within the Federal Capital Territory, and the radius is defined. But who may wish to pass on that responsibility to a minister of Federal Capital Territory. And then you now have governors who can sign CFO.
Again, Land Use Act.
Land Use Act 1978. So a regional development coordinator or managing director, whatever you call him, does he have whatever over a territory?
Were such development commissions being honestly naive, or was it just a political exuberance?
No. You know, politicians have sometimes they have a sense of they overprice themselves. If you ask me, because they think they are very important, because we've elected them, or somebody is appointed to a position of trust, and he thinks, look, I have mandate. But that mandate is vested on you by the president or a governor, if you are a political appointee, or by the people if you are an elected official. That's number one. Number two is it could also be ignorance of what should I do. If you ask me, what should development commissions do? First is to look at gaps, engage governors, go to Kano, ask the governor of Kano and say, Your Excellency, you have
I know you were already making a brilliant point a while ago, Ima, but I want us to now look at the issue of funding. Yes, we have said the bulk of the funding, of course, comes from monies realized from the sale of oil at the international market. Incidentally, as we speak right now, we understand there has been at least a windfall of about 5 trillion, which, of course, should mean that Nigeria as a country is, in a manner of speaking, smiling to the bank. Has funding been at any point a constraint for these development commissions anywhere in the country?
Well, I think if you ask me, the Development Commission's major headache now should be prioritizing, not funding. Because they've gone to defend their budgets.
Right.
But the first question I want to ask, what are the items they want to focus on? Is it a roadshow? Is it
roadshow?
Is it stakeholders meeting? Stakeholders for who? You can hold, I mean, we are in a digital age. You can sit in your office and have a meeting with all the governors and have a meeting with anybody in anywhere in the world. Some apps can take as much as 1,000 people on a call. I've been on X when Donald Trump won election. Elon Musk held a town hall.
X Spaces.
Held a town hall. And there were more than almost hundreds of thousands of people. It's still on X, you can go check it. And people are making contributions. So the point is this, that if you ask me, what they should do rather should be prioritizing. The legislators should scrutinize their budget in such a way to ensure that frivolities don't get in there. You don't need any roadshow anywhere. There's Nigerian embassy across the world. We have 109 missions. There are trade officers, there are investment officers there to do that. The president travels, the governors travels. So what would a development commission president be traveling to do what? Your job is simply check the schools we have here. Do children have access to seats? If they don't have, how do we meet up that gap? You are an interventionist agency. How do we meet up that gap? The markets we have, are they secured? Are they walled to foster, to enhance security of the market? Then you can, if you do that, I'm sure the people in the villages will be happy that their markets, their wells are safe, even when they leave it there before the market day. So what they should do is roll their sleeves and get to work. Not to think that, oh, this is another bazaar. Because part of the problem is bazaar. You know that bazaar mentality.
Let's just spend the money.
Yeah, we've got big budget to spend. So what I'm bothered about, I want to see what does their budget look like? What items, what projects, what interventions do they intend to engage?
Can we look at
what is the value for money for the project they want to engage in?
I'd like us to look at regional development beyond the commissions themselves now. One would have thought by now, yes, we know oil is a big deal for Nigeria. We can't pretend about that anymore. It's too late to pretend, right? But can we also drill down to what I'd like to call the competitive advantage of each state, each region? Well, for example, we keep saying that when we're regional, government was regionally based. We had agriculture in the north. We had the granite pyramid. We had all of the minerals. We had even coal from the southeast, for example, and so on and so forth. As it stands today, do we have a system in this country that governs the different competitive items, so to speak, that these regions bring in such a way that we can use this or leverage it as a basis to drive national development?
Yeah, I think there in some parts of the country you have it. I usually would like to make an example with the Southwest. Do you know companies that were set up by the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo to date are still there? The banks are there, the investment companies are there, and all that. They are running. For the Southeast owned quite a lot of investment jointly, but as the state were split into 5 states, I can tell you for free, none of those investments are jointly owned again. It's the individual states where they are located that runs them. Whether it's Hotel Presidential Port Harcourt, Hotel Presidential Enugu, whether it's in Calago Cement and all that. Whether it's Golden Guineas Breweries is situated in Umuahia. So Abia state government is supposed to superintend over it. I'm not sure it's working. You have Calago Cement at Ebonyi. Calago is in Ebonyi. I'm not sure it's still working. But I think Enugu state government renovated and reactivated Hotel Presidential Enugu. In northern Nigeria, there's Northern Nigeria Development Company that owns Arewa Suits, Arewa Hotels and all that. In fact, they are actually supposed to own New Nigeria, but they have left it to moribund. New Nigeria, I think when federal government wanted to sell it off, they said they bought it.
Right.
But you can't find New Nigeria on the streets. But you have that Northern Nigeria Development Company. Their headquarters is in Kaduna, I've been there. So then you also have this regional governors forum, Southwest Governors Forum, Southeast Governors Forum. So my first question should be, what do they discuss at their meetings? What do they do? Is it that they have not found areas of convergence and say, look, why don't we do inter-rail within us as a way of fostering intra-state trade, free movement of goods and services within us? Why don't we embark on a joint road network? So if I'm traveling between Abia and Imo and Ebonyi, so that it becomes seamless. But can I tell you why some of these things are not working? The moment somebody becomes a governor, he sets his eye on becoming the president of Nigeria. There's a state in Nigeria who, since 1999, all their governors have all aspired to become president.
All of them.
All of them.
Wow.
And they've spent fortune, they've spent energy and resources. They want to be president. So you have these political distractions that most times affects the governors from working together, because each of them see themselves as competing individually, not their state competing. Not their state competing in terms of performance, but individually. The other person feels that the other person is a stumbling block to his future of being at the national level. So the entire, when you do a psychoanalysis of power, and you could find that happen. You could get the underpinnings of some of these reasons why people are unable to work together. But let me tell you, for the Southeast, if Southeast says, let's develop rail, a regional rail between Onitsha is at one end, while Nsukka is at the other end, then you now have Ebonyi at the other end. So, and say, let's develop an inter-regional rail. So what it means is that between Onitsha, where you have a big market, Nnewi, where you have an industrial complex, Aba, where you have a market and industrial complex, you could make it in such a way that it's easy for people from Cross River, even Cameroon, who wants to buy from Nigeria, because between Cross River and Cameroon, it's just on the other side of the road.
Yes.
So you could develop such that you could even influence markets beyond Nigeria.
Right.
If you go to Ogun State and Shaki, somewhere in Shaki is in Oyo, and you now have this other place in Ogun, where you just cross over to the other side, you are in Benin Republic. Even up to Kwara, Kayama, Barutin, Kainji. So the point is that because we are not intentional, the leadership is not intentional, if you ask me. They are not. Often they are not. Is it that when someone becomes governor and you are from the central senatorial district, say, in the last 42 years, we never had a governor, so this is our time. You now concentrate on putting infrastructure in your place.
Right.
There's one of the states, I was asking somebody, I went to a community, there's nothing, they say, no, it's not their turn yet. When they have a governor, their governor will develop it. So that's the problem. But the governors, anyone who is elected as a governor should ask himself a question. Where are the comparative advantage for my state that I need to develop? Is it tourism? Is it mineral resources? What is it that can keep the state on top, not minding where it's located? Because often the priority is it in my senatorial zone?
Right.
So and that's the problem.
I'm sure
sometimes there's also a succession problem.
That transition between the governors.
Let's look at Tinapa.
Cross River State.
Cross River. If Tinapa had been so developed
beyond
and sustained, by now, Calabar, Cross River will become tourism destination of Nigeria. Countries like Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, Namibia, where do they get
their revenue
from? Uganda.
Tourism.
It's tourism. But people want to travel. But beyond Donald Duke, that's the end. I've gone to Tinapa because I schooled in Calabar. So I travel to Calabar often. So it was a dream that we let to die just because of politics, just because of that transition couldn't happen.
Now, talking about politics, we've heard that this development commissions, one of the reasons why they've not been up and doing is because of politics and interference. So how has political interference tripled on their mandates, so much so that they've not been able to be to the level that they should be performing at?
No, if you ask me, beyond Niger Delta Development Commission and Northeast Development, I'm not sure we need any of those commissions. If you ask me, I've engaged some legislators. I said, Honorable, why are you pushing this bill? For me, it doesn't make sense. Because at every point in time, I would want to tell you how I feel about those issues. I said, what is the mandate? What is their remit? What is it the governors are not doing you want them to do? What is it that Federal Ministry of Agriculture is not doing that these commissions will do? What is it that Federal Ministry of Works and Housing? Let me give you an example. Somebody told me a story of a state where someone was a governor for 8 years. He didn't build the rural roads. The roads in the hinterland. Rural roads that he would have empowered the local government to do. He had to wait until he became a senator. And that's why you see governors want to go to Senate so that they can reflect and say, I abandoned this community. What do I do?
To make it up to them.
And constituency projects. Now the idea of constituency project, ask yourself a question. What items do these constituency projects cover or target? Think about your community. What does a constituency project deliver? Are there responsibilities of the local governments? I've asked myself, there's this budget line I keep seeing. A school is located in Gombe, and an institution is located in Gombe and is doing a project in Abia, or is doing a project in Ahoda, or in Akwa Ibom, or is doing a project in Kaura Namuda. That's the question. Because every line item, if you ask me in terms of budgeting, should be resident within that very location. For instance, if you take off these constituency projects, you can ask Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, can you identify the roads that are your responsibilities? In Nigeria, roads are classified. There are 3 classifications of roads: trunk A, trunk B, and trunk C. So, which roads are the responsibilities of the federal government? and can we do an assessment and see how much of it we need to do? Which roads are the responsibility of the state government? So at the state level, the governor should ask himself, what are my responsibility? Do I need to have 1 million aids, 10,000 aids? Because that's another issue where you could see so much resources is expended paying the aids and then abandoning the real work of infrastructure development. If someone wants to be an aide and say he would want to get paid, you can allow him be, so that he can answer the name. But the point is that, do you really need the number of aides you have at the states? And what do they do? Can't that money go into infrastructural development? Because investors, what attracts investors is, look, we can have access to markets. Assuming there's an investor from, say, China, who is interested in buying cassava pellets somewhere in Edo, and there's no access to the farm.
Right.
They won't be able to bring in their truck and for offtake. Do you know the impact? Can't governors say, let's develop a market output store or warehouse for farm produce? As you're bringing it there, somebody is paying, an off-taker is paying, and they are storing it, a storage facility is there, and then off-takers, manufacturers can come in from everywhere to pick it up from there. So often, I know states, I've walked around the agriculture sector, states you go to, half of the farm produce actually don't get to the market because there's no access to the farm. So what are we doing about creating that access route to the farm? But what it does is that it creates the off-taker can come to the farm gate and buy directly from the farmer, and the farmer makes more money because you cut off that line of that long chain of people who would want to give the impression that there's no pricing, there's no premium for your farm produce. That's what other countries have done.
Interesting. But you see, again, I want us to now look at things like development plans. I remember, for example, a few years ago, Obaseki was still the governor, Governor Obaseki, at that time was still the governor of Edo State. And he rolled out something he called the 30-year development plan. And for the most part, that initiative itself was met with so much of backlash because there were those who said, first of all, you are not going to be in office for another 30 years. Second, we have seen policy somersault time and again in Nigeria. Third, for many of you politicians, politics comes before anything else. And I'm not so sure that plan saw the light of day. So when we talk about development plans in Nigeria, are we just using it to drive a particular administration, or are we actually being futuristic?
Well, in planning for business, the minimum you can plan is 5 years.
Minimum?
Yes. For business,
right.
For institutions.
Even for small organizations?
It's 5 years. 5 years, whether 5 years development plan, you can move it to 10 years. You can move it to 15, 20, depending on
your projection,
what you're looking at. But I think, for instance, before now, we had 10 years development plan.
As a country?
Yes, that's the way it is. Beginning from, I think, 1958, there was another one in the early 70s. It was when we now came into the 90s that we started losing that idea, that interest. Because the idea is actually projection to say in 1960 at independence, we did a population census of 1959, say we were 43.6 million. By 1963, there was another census, and we saw there is a little bit increase. As of today, the projection is 230 million people in Nigeria. So how do you plan? This is Abuja. Abuja by next year will be 50 years old. 1976, isn't it? Now I saw a development plan for first phase of Abuja because I covered FCT over 20 years ago as a reporter. Now, for the first phase, it's 300,000 people that it's meant for. 300,000 people. 325,000 people precisely. So what's the population of the city center now? So that's why you could see the pressure on infrastructure when people come to work. You could see manhole everywhere, not properly, not well kept.
So how do you do that? Do you stop people from coming to the city?
So the problem is simply this. As at that time, what was the population of Nigeria? That's why. Have you moved? Did you think through, we're going to have so much, all the bureaucratic institutions here, people who provide services. To begin with, I have an idea that Abuja is too large for a for a federal capital of a country.
Too large.
That's the largest you can find anywhere in the world. Over 8,000 square miles. Lagos is 3,450 square miles and has over 20 million people. It's estimated to be over 20 million. So Abuja is twice size of Lagos. That cannot be a capital city. If you ask me, it's a state you've just created.
So it's going to be difficult to develop, or what?
You can't develop it. Take Paris, take London, take Washington DC, Washington District of Columbia. There's a Washington state that is far, far away. So you are creating a state, not capital city. Just basic data.
Right.
Over 8,000 square miles, and Lagos is 3,000. So it means we are not creating a capital city. In fact, there was a constitutional review, I think of 2000 or thereabout. A certain lawyer, who is a senior advocate now, made that proposition. It was held at Sheraton that we need to reduce the size of the capital city. Because that's the only way you can have a handle over it.
But are the authorities listening to that proposition?
No, the point is simply this. Either as at the time these creations were being done, people didn't think through. You know, there are several things that happen. There's some information you gain with hindsight. 50 years, where are you? What have you developed? In the next 50 years, God keeping us alive. What you will come here and you might be shocked not much has happened. Because the fight is over who controls the city center. Nobody is interested on the outside. In London, who are the people who work in London? They come in from
the other
the environment. No, the people who work in Washington. In fact, in 3 hours you can walk around Washington, or less than that. If you begin a journey on foot from Abaji to Maraba, it's going to take you weeks. So the simple question, in fact, in Washington DC, you have less than about 800,000 people, or less than that.
So city is properly managed.
That's how. So if you ask me, they were creating another state.
But in a country like ours, where everyone seems to be looking towards the city for development, how would you stop people from coming in? Because this is where everything is happening.
Exactly.
You're not stopping people. Nobody's stopping any. But people can come in from a journey. All you need to do is to create enabling infrastructure, a rail system, the London rail system, the Paris rail system, the Washington rail system.
That's the first metro.
People come in from Maryland, they come in from Virginia and all that. To work and go back.
Every day.
Have metro. Walking. Now, you want to do a metro here, the first priority is the airport.
And
not Maraba, and not Abaji, and not Suleja. So the point is this. the elites who take decision, who do they prioritize? Right. It's a clear question we need to ask. Do they prioritize the people who are supposed to be service providers? Because if I'm thinking about a service provider who lives in Suleja, who needs to be here early, or who lives in Abaji, who needs to be here early, or who lives in
Gwagwalada,
who lives. That's not the issue.
Incidentally, I'm afraid that this issue of development is actually going to keep developing. I mean, this discussion itself for a while. But I would like to appreciate you for that. I mean, these are very valuable insights you've come to share with us today. Emmanuel Ozamena, policy consultant. We do not take your intelligence for granted. Thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
All right, that's what we're leaving it, everyone. It's been Global Morning, Sunday's edition with Uyag Mofwegbe and Mokhtar Kasim. Just to remind you that the views of our guests are their opinions, and here is wishing you the best of the week that has just started.